This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
We have a fun panel today, just talking about fitness, nutrition, and more. Tonight's guest, Shannon Wenzel from Airborne. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So we're supposed to have a bigger panel, but overall, I just thought we'd go ahead and really just show how there's no shortage of aiming higher. Like there's fitness and nutrition, it doesn't have to be work, and it also doesn't have to be an inconvenience. And so we're just gonna kind of circle around on the round table and just mainly chat about what tips are just always good to have and how they've evolved and everything, and also how there's just so many other ways to go about it. It's not just, oh, I can't afford this gym, or I want to do the work, but I don't have any time. It's like there's so many ways we can hack these arguments and not just sustain it.
Well, I mean, just as a starting place, convenience and accessibility are a very, very real thing that sometimes I do feel like is overlooked when you're looking at somebody's content or you're following somebody who you're really excited about, and maybe they have great fitness suggestions or even great nutrition suggestions. But when you ignore those two things, the people that you want to be successful will start to fail at your programs.
Bingo. My brother has had the fortune of training recruits for both the Texas Rangers and now the Arizona Brewers.
Cool.
And for him, it didn't happen that way overnight. He had plenty of office politics to deal with and all that, but he pretty much got a trip down memory lane with a lot of the same, just like you would if you were doing a regular like fitness training session. He just had that mix of, okay, this person, I see it on their body language and what they're asking there, they couldn't care less. And this person, I'm seeing the excitement and the interest, but they don't seem to know how to ask the question. I will make it my job to get them there.
Yeah.
Since they're shy, but they're putting in the time and the effort, or they do know what they want, but there's still just like some other dent in the road that's preventing them.
And what do you think has been the most helpful? Has he mentioned, is it using psychology to understand personality-based things? Is it using something more like, people are super obsessed with Enneagram, people are obsessed with human design? Is it more like that? Or is it more helping people figure out what habits they can sustain?
I'm going to actually say it's a little mixture of both. First, you start out, I don't want to say dumb down, but you simplify it as much as you can. And then it helped that he was doing a bunch of like pre-visualization, like PowerPoints. Yes. Just some people again, they're only visual. They're not good with words. They've failed every essay they've taken, but they still got a heartbeat, and they still know what they want, even if they can't break that down for us conveniently. And yeah, it was just a lot of just outline as much as you want. And sometimes he would visit into town at a family reunion, and there'd be someone who's like, hey, my kid wants to take some batting practice with you, or what kind of yoga or other stretching techniques would you recommend? And so he, based off the info they gave him, he just determined, hey, seems like you got this much, you might fit this in to your busy schedule.
And absolutely. Well, I think one of the interesting things about doing more work in the industry is really finding how many people have I don't want to say it's very poor education about these things, but have very limited education about these things. Like the brightest, most educated people you know do not know very much about nutrition. Sometimes they don't know how their body's working. They feel like shit every day when they wake up. They don't even know that about themselves because they've been feeling so badly for so many days. They think that this is normal, particularly if you're over a certain age and you hear, oh, this is just what happens when you turn 30. This is just what happens when you turn 40. And that is not necessarily the case. We can learn things about ourselves, and we can learn things about how we eat and how we move our bodies, and really the whole holistic health, your mental health, the environmental stuff around you, your relationships, that really do change how you feel. But I wouldn't even say it's dumbing down to say that many people are starting from a place not where experts are starting. They do not know the things that sometimes you might think they know. And it is good to start from, do you understand what a protein is? I was having a conversation with somebody, a very, very smart man, a lawyer, no idea. No idea. You know, they kind of know that vegetable soup is healthy, so they assume that that has a protein, and it just doesn't. And so just starting from that point is really not even necessarily dumbing down or treating people like they're stupid. It's helping them make that foundation so that those healthy habits they're trying to build are actually successful.
I think to your point, I think that's what it goes back into. It's just the insecurity, like even the brightest individual. And I'm not trying to attack their character or whatever. It's just they feel somehow called out on the spot, you know, like naked. Like, I actually don't. So I'm gonna just make up as many adjectives as I can. And it's like, it's okay. It's not a retort. We're not having a rap battle. I just what is it to you? You know? And then I'll tell you what it is. You know, obviously it's an essential part, but they're chains of amino acids, and that's not even the complete, you know, definition. You know, but yeah, no, it never hurts to ask. It's kind of, I kind of look at it like with when people choose what they want to do with their career. Sometimes they haven't asked what they actually wanted to do. They were just trying to make mom and dad impressed, or first thing their academic advisor did, and then they found out midway through, I actually don't have any interest in this, you know, even though I can do the work.
Oh, well, that's totally what I find. It's both that, so they're like listening to the loudest, most confident person on the internet, not necessarily somebody who's right, or different things work for different people. So somebody you love, your trainer, whoever, is like, this is what works for me. And you start eating that way and you feel like total drunk. I tried to be a vegan one time. I felt like I was going to be on the verge of death. Other people, they've never felt better when they're vegans.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that makes this so complicated, is that there is not a one size fits all prescription for fitness, nutrition, even businesses in fitness and nutrition. And while it is much sexier and it plays a lot better on the internet, if you do have everyone has to do it this one way. I am the god of this. I know everything. This will work for everybody. That is what plays and that is what sells. That is not how people's bodies work. And it's so much more frustrating to say, you are going to have to pay attention and customize this for yourself by trying things. And some things you try are not going to work. And that's going to be hard and frustrating. It's a lot harder than do this one thing. I promise, I guarantee it'll work.
Yeah, it will definitely sell. It's both a simplification as well as a pitch. And I'm not, and as a disclaimer, I'm not trying to shout out any products. I'm just recommending a few things. One food I used was Odyssey Snacks, and I liked them a lot because they don't use a lot of the bad for your gut sugar alcohols that many other protein bars have. And I was looking up, they go out of stock constantly all the time. Like, they're in such high demand. But there was a few other like gut healing bars, and I was looking up and I was like, oh, good reviews, but there were still a few. Is like, oh, it's got that one ingredient that we're trying to avoid in some of these, and that's some of those certain sugar alcohols, sweeteners. Not enough of the superfood elements of like kale and spinach and quinoa that they would mix into all the other flavors like banana and dark chocolate.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Is that different people care about different things.
Yeah.
So you might have that conversation with somebody and they do not care about that at all. So one of the things I try to teach a lot of times is moving toward more of a whole foods-based diet, eating cleaner. And sometimes I find that that is not in the people I'm working with goals at all. They do not care about that. So the more that you hammer home, like this only has this many ingredients and it's free of this, if they don't care about that, that's not a connection for them. You're not helping them build a sustainable habit then. And so to your point, those are maybe the very best thing for you. You love them. You found them. You're like, this feels exactly what my values are around this, but your best friend might not care at all.
It's so wild too. It's like they want to do one part of the puzzle, even though it ultimately all kind of connects.
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't want to sedate it in a way where you're like, hey, I'm the dictator now and you do what I say. But at the same time, you're just like, well, you're kind of selling yourself short if you eat this and that. But at the same time, there might be this workaround if you're not going to take that food out of your pyramid, your personal pyramid. But
I mean, it's far better for somebody to be honest with you and be like, I'm straight up not going to do that than to invest
yes,
time with you and come to you every week and being like, this isn't working, but lying to you about what they're actually willing to do. It's frustrating for them. It's frustrating for you.
You're right. At least it's out of the bag and there's no there's no suspense anymore. You're like, okay.
And
we're
people
gonna
do
work on
move
this.
forward. I've had a ton of clients who are like, I will do everything, but I'm absolutely not giving up, let's say, Diet Coke, or they won't give up vodka soda. Okay. So you're not going to. But in a year, when they've been doing the things you've been teaching them a year, all of a sudden they're like, I don't need this anymore. And then it feels easy to them because the timing was right for
Yes.
them.
Nice. Absolutely. I found out, so to complement your bubble, if there was one vacuum of ignorance I was a part of, I didn't know that there was a difference between food allergies and food intolerance until last few years. Big
Okay, what was that
difference.
like? There is a big difference.
Right. So I just thought it all kind of swam together. Like it was ultimately all part of the same overall picture. And it's like, well, no. Like and so I still need to do an intolerance test, but I did the allergy test, and many of the guys doing the allergy and who do a lot of the similar treatments at the particular clinic I was visiting, they're like, yeah, we would definitely recommend you follow up with an intolerance. And yeah, at the same time though, you definitely want to take one that doesn't break your bank account either.
Fair enough.
This one was, the ones who wanted to follow up with it were like, we need you here at 6 in the morning because it closes at this time and there'll be $5K. I'm like, I'll think about it. But it was I really do care. I'll think about it, as opposed to being polite, telling a white lie.
Well, and honestly, people out there who are listening to this, you can hack that for free by doing your own elimination diet for 30 days for at least some of the big ones. Maybe not everything in the world that test was going to test for. Absolutely not. But if that is not accessible for you, you can really figure out some of your things. So my husband, before he did that, was very much like you. He knew there were food allergies. He didn't really believe anyone had an intolerance. But as it turns out, when you take those things out of your diet for a long period of time and you're careful about how you add them back in, you'll see what symptoms come along with what you add back in. And sometimes it's nothing and you're like, awesome, gluten doesn't bother me at all. But sometimes you add back in something, let's say dairy, and then all of a sudden you're snoring when you sleep again, you're congested again, and you're like, well, I'm not allergic. I've been eating this my whole life. It doesn't really bother me, but it does cause symptoms. But that's perfect because then you get to decide for yourself. Are my symptoms significant enough that I care? Maybe you don't care. Maybe you care a little bit, so you eat a little bit less, but it's not a true allergy, like you said. And it might not even be a true intolerance. It's just, do you care about the symptom that comes along with you eating this? And that's a really accessible way to do it. You can do that yourself at home.
Absolutely. It is wild though, too, like which ones you found out the hard way. Okay. It's not necessarily an allergic, but my body doesn't want too much of this, like in this scoop. There's always kind of that gray area, but
it can be really tricky, particularly if one of your symptoms is inflammation. That's really hard to notice. So like I said, we were very big on trying to eat cleaner. I'm a dum-dum. So I was trying to eat a lot of non-dairy products. So I was doing a lot of almond milk, a lot of things like that, almond butter, all of that kind of stuff. Well, I actually did do one of those long-term tests, like you said, sent everything away, paid for it all. You want to know what? I react very highly to almonds. So in my quest to do better, to be healthier, I was feeling myself full of something that my body didn't like. Sometimes that
Mm,
happens.
I'm so glad you brought up almonds. I could handle them for a while, and then one day, like I just started sneezing uncontrollably, and I'm like, my soul was crushed. I'm like, I love this. This is supposedly great for you, and however it was mixed, it didn't matter how much it was moderated. My sister and mother, who are also health freaks, were like, "Your nose is running." I'm like, "You're right, but more than usual." It's not because the
It can
food's
be very
hot.
frustrating figuring all that out.
Yeah. Um. So, uh, how did you decide you wanted to make this part of your brand? With
How did I decide I wanted to make Arbonne
uh,
part of my brand?
yeah, with fitness and wellness.
That's easy. Just that is what Arbonne's thing is, right? It's health from the inside out. That is their mission. It like encompasses all holistic health, like I mentioned earlier. Everything. We want you connected. We want you giving. We want you to be buying from a company that aligns with your values. So Arbonne is a B corporation. Most people are probably familiar with a lot of really famous B corporations like Patagonia, Ben and Jerry's, Athleta. All that means
Mm.
is we are legally required, because we put ourselves in this situation, to put people and planet above profit. So they look into like 160 aspects of your business, everything, your sustainability policy, your environmental policy. Do you pay everyone a living wage, not minimum wage, but a living wage for where you're located, all of that kind of stuff, right? So we want everybody to have all of their health, their values, and things that align with them all in one spot. And so when I found that, I was like, okay, that's something that I'm happy to represent. But just as an entrepreneur looking for something, the real advantage to me is a couple of different things. And one thing is the monthly recurring revenue. So in another creator position, so just using, let's say, my social media as an influencer, when you click one of my links and you buy, a sweater that I'm talking about, I might get paid a little bit here and there when you buy that sweater. But when next week you love that and you buy like 4 of the same ones, I don't get paid. And the same would be true for nutrition. If I link something like, I
Yes.
don't want to say, but a brand of protein powder you can buy from Amazon or whatever it is, I will get paid a couple of cents on that. But when you love it and you buy that every single month for the rest of your life, I'm done. I have no connection to that anymore financially or whatever it is. And one of the great things about social sales is that's not the case. So when I introduce you to
Nice.
something you love, let's say protein powder, and you buy that, not only do I get paid commission today, just like anything if you're a content creator, but also every time you ever buy that forever. And then every time you're like browsing around on the website and you're bored and you're like, I'm going to buy my mom a Mother's Day gift. Let me pick up body care. I also get paid for that, right? So really, as an
There you go.
entrepreneur, the recurring revenue makes a huge difference in the end in your income versus what I was already doing, just content creating, using affiliate links, that kind of stuff. That was really attractive to me. And the more I learned and the more programs that I did just as a consumer before I branded or not branded with them, before I partnered with the brand, I was really like, this is working for us. This is a really good middle ground between some of the, I would say there's really extreme programs that have been very, very popular where if you mess up once, like the classic is you lick the peanut butter spoon, you're back at day one. Like you failed entirely and you start at day one.
Yes.
Yeah, there are more than one program like that. And while that might seem perfect to so many of us, particularly if you're type A and you're like, I want my products to look exactly like this, like we were talking about, we're so picky about
How it looks.
whatever. Realistically, that doesn't work for people. People
No.
fail out of those programs all of the time. So I just found that the programs were something that had worked for us as clients before I ever thought about branding with them, but also really were a great middle ground for people that like let them develop sustainable habits in a life that was
Yes.
realistic for them. And I just found that that was really, really important, particularly in our area. I live really rurally. Really important to start them at the place where they're at. And it's not just if you mess up once or if you don't do this part of it, you fail. You're done forever. We can't work with you. I really like that about it.
And that is so beautifully stated. That, well, because I think this is it. Like, self-control is another thing. There's some people, the minute they like to let life kind of shoehorn them in, and vice versa. They don't want life getting in the way, but the minute they get too many interruptions, they're just like, screw it. That, and I think it just also kind of comes back to we're taught, oh, don't be selfish, care for other people, but we still have to work on ourselves, you know. And
Well, there's a middle ground there. Absolutely. Yes, of course. Particularly if you're a parent, right? If you're busy, if you're a caretaker of your own parents, whatever that looks like for you, you're building your career. It's a real thing. You're going to be very busy. It will be hard to find that time. But I have found that if you don't, your body will pay for it later. Like that book called The Body Keeps Score. Your body does keep score. You will absolutely pay for it at some time if you do not take some steps to be caring for your physical health, your mental health, your relationships, all of that.
I think I've heard of that book by Bessel van der Kolk.
I think so. It's really about trauma. It's not meant to be necessarily about, being a parent. It's really about how if you experience trauma, even as a child, that is directly linked to disease they find later and why and how, and how you just can't suppress things and think they go away. Even if you feel okay that day, years later, it will come up, and it might be something like your cortisol. It might be something like cancer. It might be something like body will hold on to that somehow. It'll protect you. It helps you heal. It helps you move forward. It helps you keep living, but also it is not free of consequences to never take care of yourself.
Bingo. And kudos to those who can work in exercise at the place they're getting paid for. So if you're a factory guy, or just doing something else that's physically exerting, like I used to hate mowing the lawn. I still do to an extent, but now I make it work for me. It's like, okay, it's got to get done. So today I don't go to the gym as much, but I'm going to, still get my resistance training in the form of mowing this lawn and running around while pushing a, object. And
people do make it too complicated. If you can lift and you walk enough, you are 90% of the way there. Are there other things? Of course. But really,
yes.
If you can do those two things, you're doing a lot.
Warm-ups and all that. Have you ever tried a HIIT? And for those who don't know, that's high interval intense training.
I have. I go back and forth. I have a personality that likes really intense working out, but the more that I do that, the more that my body, after usually about 6 or 9 months, starts resisting and starts going back in the direction. And so I've done all of the things. I've run a marathon and Orange Theory and 75 hard. And I've done all of the crazy things.
Oh, man.
And I really enjoy them. There's a big part of my brain that prefers to be that way. My body does not. It just starts to kind of run down after a while. And I find that I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm retaining weight. I'm not feeling as good. So I've really gotten to a place where the two things that I focus on are exactly what I just said: lifting and walking. Those are the two things that I really focus on fitness wise now, to stay in a good place where I'm doing what's right for my health, but I am not continually overdoing it to the point where it's detrimental.
Yeah. To be fair, life would be boring if we could read our body. It's like, what do you want to do? I want to sit back and relax. That's what it's thinking.
Well, we might be getting there. I mean, so I have an Aura ring. There are other things like this, like the Whoop bands. There's so many things, but they give you that recovery score now, and it's putting together your bio data, your respiration, how you slept, your heart rate. It tells you how resilient you've been that day. And so one of the reasons I spent the money on stuff like this is because I wanted to know, am I just being lazy today and I don't feel like pushing it? Or is this workout genuinely harder than it was yesterday? For whatever reason, my body is actually tired, even though I don't know that I'm tired. Your bio data does. And so that's one of the things I think is really interesting, that we're getting to the point where you can know more and more and more about what's actually happening to you.
Bingo. Those who can't see this video broadcast, I'm wearing red light glasses. When I first started using these, I thought, oh, it's BS, that's just people overreacting. But it's like, no, I'm seeing a significant difference.
Oh, I would love to hear. What difference do you feel?
You do kind of, I start yawning just more naturally, especially with the whole, don't be looking at screens before you go to bed. Well, realistically, I'm looking at an email for work, or, I got a program, I'm listening to music, and yeah, it really just kind of reminds the mind, is like, hey, it's still nighttime. You're going to go to bed in 5 hours,
That kind of stuff is fascinating to me. I get a lot of people asking me about a lot of different products or habits or whatever. And I feel bad sometimes being like, listen, I actually don't know if this is doing anything or not, but the research looks good, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm not going to doubt it for now.
Yeah, there's so many things. Using a sauna, so I've got a red light sauna. I've got, things like that. Do I know for sure? I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I believe it, and the research is good, and I don't hate it, so I just keep going.
It's not mentally or physically breaking me. It must be good.
Well, at least it's okay.
There you go. Um, and you have a lot of great products on your LTK store. You got a few of the rings. You also got Stanley Cups and what product have you really been fun to just kind of recommend to your customers?
I mean, I would say the LTK is really a secondary thing for me. Like I
Okay.
mentioned earlier, I love that. And I've had a really good time with that. People tend to ask me about certain things like that. But really, what I focus on are kind of the 3 programs that I coach.
Mm,
And those are not available through there. They're available through my website. But
correct.
I have a lot of passion for helping people feel better. Like I want you to wake up and have the energy that you should have to do whatever you're going to do, whether that is your job, whether that's your job and your kids, whether that's your job and your kids and another thing. But you
Hmm.
should not feel like crap all day, every day. And so many people do. And just knowing that you can find some shifts that actually have you wake up and you feel energy, you want to play with your kids,
You're
you're not miserable
energized.
all the time.
Uh,
Yes, that to me makes such a big difference in people's quality of life. So I really, really love to talk to people more about what nutrition program might be right for them, what habits might they be ready to shift so that they can kind of make some of those changes that actually have the biggest impact in the quality of your life.
that's lovely. Because I mean, and this is where it kind of is a big 180. Is like is the reason this job is right for you is you do enjoy doing this versus this is work and I got to go into salesperson mode.
I just don't feel that way. I mean, it is a sales job. There's no two ways around it.
Right.
But I also think almost every job is a sales job now. So I went to law school. I haven't practiced, like, I don't work anymore doing that. But everyone I know who does, they're in a sales job. Their job is bringing in business. Same with people who are in insurance, same with my dentist and my
Hmm.
doctor. And I'm hearing from everybody that a big part of people's jobs now, no matter what you did, is kind of a sales job. So I kind of in a lot of senses, I think it's time to let go of some of the stigma we have about having a sales job and you're going to try to sell me stuff. Not really. What
Yeah.
really happens is people want to work with people they know, like, and trust, people they respect. And if you can be somebody who's providing a lot of good information, who makes people feel empowered, they're going to want to work with or grab what you grab or use your recommendations. And so that's what makes this fun for me. But I love working with people. So I really, when I went to law school, I loved that. That was amazing. I didn't like my quality of life. I didn't like what it
Mm.
looked like in the balance of my life, particularly being a parent. And so this is something that allows me to work with a lot of people, to use a lot of leadership skills, to teach other people how to do what I do, to help them feel better in their lives, and still be able to have the balance of the life that I want here with my 5 kids and all that kind of stuff like that.
Man, now that is a great 180 story.
It-
I I know so many other people who have been in that line of work and they've been like, I guess I'll suffer. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like, no, you
They
can't.
call it golden handcuffs for a reason.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast wrecks and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out. Not sure if you've heard of this product. God, it's a wonderful food. God. So there's been a few different protein bars I've tried out that I think really do complement versus others that just basically just feel like no better than a typical sugar bar.
Yeah.
I did bring up some Odyssey, but have you done any body health?
No.
Okay,
I
so that
eat a ton of bars myself, though.
oh, okay, so I love these because these are all amino acids, and so they recommend like taking them before a workout.
Okay. Okay.
I I it's just so delicious. You can pick a flavor and really invaluable customer service. Like they're always on it.
I love that. That's so important. Really, you cannot get away with that now. You have to.
Yeah.
People will leave there because there's other options. So good
Mhm.
customer service, even for a big company, is so important.
Bingo. Um, so what would you say was your main driving force getting into fitness?
Well, I've always enjoyed exercise, I would say, but now at this point in my life, I really feel like overall people need it for their mental health. You are designed to move more than
Mhm.
many of us get to during the course of our day. Like you said, sometimes people do have a job, like maybe you're a nurse, maybe you're a factory worker, where you're getting in that movement
You're
and
constantly
you're
being
not going
called in.
to.
Yeah.
But so many of us do not. And one of the things that's happening is we're more sick from sitting, not moving, and what we eat than from anything else anymore. It's a huge,
Yes.
huge problem happening to us. We mostly have enough food. We're malnourished, not because we're hungry, but because everything we eat is made out of chemical shitstorm. It's not actual food anymore. Our
Yes.
bodies are not exhausted because we're doing too much manual labor. Our bodies are exhausted because we've been sitting for 15 hours a day, every day.
Mhm.
And so just knowing how different people feel and reading the research on the effects of even very simple exercise on things like people's depression, people's anxiety, all of the things that we're always talking about all of the time really is something that encourages me to keep moving forward, even when I don't feel like it, when I'm not into it. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a personality that loves a challenge. So I love to train for a marathon and I love to try to do this next extreme thing. But that is a short-term thing. Overall, to make this a lifetime habit, you have to find something you love enough to keep doing it that doesn't keep making you injured and that's really sustainable for you.
Absolutely. And we're so spoiled. We gotta remember not everybody is able to get back up. There's so much food that we consume that is becoming our kryptonite, and we don't even realize it, until our body rejects it or again, like there's a reason we work out. It's also to avoid, body not functioning properly or uh just anything else, like avoid injuries. and
Absolutely.
and
Well, and
it's a two-way street. If you're working out improperly, you're gonna also get injuries.
Well, and that's where the point that I kept coming to is I would keep doing these extreme things and then you turn up injured and then you need to take a very long break to get yourself back
Yes.
onto the point. It's just a dumb cycle to be in. So if that's where you're at, you need to make a change in that direction so that something is sustainable for you. That's really
Mhm.
my goal overall for everyone I work with and for myself. What can you get into a state of flow with? So it's a habit you don't have to think about anymore, but also that is completely sustainable. So anytime you can get somebody into doing a habit where they don't have to think anymore about it, it's like brushing your teeth. They automatically are taking their gut supplement every day.
Yes.
Don't think about it. They're automatically eating enough protein. They're protein forward all the time, where they're automatically walking every day. Once you can make that a habit for people so they don't have to think about it anymore, that's where you're seeing actual life change.
Mhm. And you'll feel it because, like you say, but then we mentioned earlier, sometimes there were some techniques and it's like I'm not really seeing much progress. So now I don't mind doing it, but I'll decide, whether it's exhausting my bank account or what have you. There's plenty of pills that are out there on the market now that are supposed to help with aging and allow for healthier skin and nails. And some of those I've seen okay results, and others I'm like, I don't really know.
And I'll
There's
admit, I have tried some of that stuff, right? I take one from Ritual right now that's meant for your
oh,
skin. It says reduces fine lines and wrinkles. Does it actually do that? They have studies that say so, or they couldn't legally claim it. But do you know? No, no, not really. Not really. But if you can afford it and it's not hurting anything, may as well try. I take a couple of supplements that I actually don't know for sure. that they're working because I can't tell, but they're not hurting anything. And if it's affordable for you and sustainable for you, then may as well believe the resource that there is.
Why not? There's a few that are supposed to help with better breathing as well, which I think are cool. And I've got to test out some of those. Wish I could prior to this recording, but we'll see.
I mean, I've read that pre-workout that some pre-workouts are just caffeine and sugar and crap, but some of them, one of the things they do is help oxygenate your blood better. And that's what makes it feel easier for you, or you're able to go for longer. You're able to go harder. I think that's fascinating.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, speaking of fascinating, I think that's another thing that we got to remind each other is just like, hey, uh, if something really is intriguing to you, maybe, keep that momentum going. There's a reason it fascinates you, and make that become part of your lifestyle. I mean, just kind of like we choose our battles, like it took me years to find a job where it's like, okay, this is fine. This isn't what I want, but I can do it. It's not becoming a pain, and it's not invading my personal life for the most part.
Absolutely.
There are moments, but now they're substantially minuscule.
Well, and that's the dream, is it not?
Yeah, but
it really is, that you build a life, you design a life that you feel comfortable in and that you love, and that gets you the things that you are looking for.
Right. In fact, that's actually how I started the podcast. It was actually a year before COVID. I was just like, hey, we don't all have time to talk together, so how about we just get together and just talk on a weekly basis. Whoever can make it, would love to have you. But then it got to, okay, now I really do want to make time for this in addition to what else I got going on days I'm off. And I'm so glad I made time for fitness, because long story short, I started suffering from insomnia.
Yep.
And so it's like, well, now fitness really has to take effect. There is no, well, I'll think about it. It's not, you can't rely on just pills or just certain foods to make you sleepy,
It makes a huge difference for me too.
I notice it. I actually got yelled at, hey, you can take the day off, it's New Year's. I'm like, I need to at least run for a bit. Please let me do that.
And it just makes a difference in everything.
Really does. And yeah, I mean, all I can say from this point on is just keep looking in the mirror and saying, I value myself.
So I use a Peloton a lot, and this is not my Peloton name, but someone's Peloton name on there is grateful to get to. And it's something that I think about all of the time when, the instructor's calling out Peloton names, is I am grateful to get to do this. You might not feel like it that day, and you might not be convenient for you that day, but overall, I am grateful that my body still does most of the things that I ask it to do, and it's carrying me around and raising my kids and doing my business. And that's a gift. We're very lucky that way, that we're capable, and it's a privilege. And I don't want to start overlooking that privilege now because I'm so busy thinking about whatever it is. And those things might be your appearance, for women in particular. And I know guys do too, but since I've never been one, I can't really speak to that. We get so focused on, is this changing my appearance the way that I want it to, that you forget about the capabilities that you have and how lucky we are that your body is doing the thing that you ask it to, or that it's capable of doing the thing that you ask it.
That's a good, this is why I like doing these chats. That's a very underrated statement. It's just like, knowing the limitations of your body. And I get it. It can be an uncomfortable topic at first if you're that insecure about it. Like, I don't know why my foot aches if I twist it this way, or if I run this way, or if I'm already out of breath, because that's just how out of shape I am, and for the longest time, I was that guy who was just like, I'll work out, but I can't do multiple things at once. I can't be looking at my phone or listening to music. Nothing will get done then. Distractions will take over. Now I've been able to implement it. And I just want to say, it's not just the support I'm blessed to have, but I would applaud therapy. Everybody should just do a therapy session. Whatever you can do to just keep outlining it, nip all those other just barriers in the butt. Just say, hey, yeah, because you did a good job earlier of describing how a lot of stuff is bigger than it actually is, and there's so many things all of us can do. They're right at the tips of our fingers. Go out and do it. But when just whatever other angst or stuff is built up over time, it makes it seem bigger than it is. And this isn't a social or political concern. This is a you concern. And I got to that point where I was worrying about, I think I'm going to freak out and start worrying, which is just as counterproductive. Like the whole pre-prevention. I was just at that point where it's like, I'm getting annoyed by just the smallest thing. Why am I letting that build up? It doesn't make any sense. I did 6 sessions of that, and I recommend BetterHelp. Again, I was not paid to endorse them, but I'm just giving that out for the record.
I could not agree more. Every time I suggest therapy to somebody, they get offended.
I'm good.
You're in a pattern. You're in a pattern that you don't like that you're in. And that's all therapy is for. It doesn't mean you need to go talk about your childhood. You don't. You just need to go in and say, I'm in a pattern that I don't like, and I'm not getting myself out of it. And I have heard all kinds of things about BetterHelp, but I will say that is what I used to. Like I mentioned, I live really rurally. We do not have a lot of access to care. And so is that the ideal for therapists? Maybe not. Maybe not. But if that's what's accessible to you and that is what you are able to do today, I agree wholeheartedly. Go ahead and do a couple of sessions and don't worry about the backstory of your entire life. And it's going to be so exhausting to explain to a therapist. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that.
And it's all over Zoom.
One question. Yes. And you can do it from your house.
You'll never be seen if you're, so anyone doing that whole, I don't want to be seen looking weak, who's going to see you in your own bedroom?
And no one
on
thinks
your headset.
Nobody thinks you're weak. One of the things we talk about in my family is people are in therapy to handle their things around somebody who will not go to therapy. So
you can look weak, but not necessarily be. I mean, I'm a security guard in the daytime. I get plenty of rude people. I don't remember it the next day. I just go, someone yelled the most mundane, bizarre thing. I can't even tell you what it was because it doesn't matter.
Agreed.
Doesn't matter. But no, I'm glad you're bringing up other aspects of this. I'm sure you met many women who are like, I'm just going to suffer for this, and I met many guys we've all met guys who do the whole macho, be a man. What does be a man mean? Suffer? That's not being a man. You clearly loathe yourself.
I'm going to tell you right now, gentlemen, women do not respect that. We don't. That's not what we want from you. I don't know who told you that's what we want from you, but it's not.
I think it goes back to just all these other just ancient traditions. I'm sure you've seen how many 70s based exercise books are as bad as the food pyramid, where it's like, no, this food all translates to sugar, I look at it now and I don't know how I didn't get diabetes or anything else. I ate so much cereal growing up. I should not be in the condition.
Now, do not quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that the ingredients in some of those things that we all ate growing up have changed. They've gotten more, they've not gotten better. So a lot of times people say, well, I could eat that and it didn't hurt me as a kid, but it's not actually the same product anymore. True. And so if you go look, for example, McDonald's French fries is a really easy comparison to that. They had like 3 ingredients. They were like potatoes, beef fat, and salt. And now they're like 80 ingredients. So you feel like it's the identical product. It's not.
It just has the same logo. That's all it has. And I mean,
probably
we do this
cereal too. I don't know.
Unfortunately, a lot of the healthier foods I have still use a bit of canola oil and other questionable stuff. And I just have to say, okay, well, I still think there's other good ingredients in this product, but then there's others where I'm like, that really gave me some serious heartburn. I'm going to stop eating that, regardless of what else is in that. Just take note.
Well, this is a real progress over perfection issue, right?
Yes.
Because now we do have access to so much information. And one of the things that I see often, particularly people in the industry, is more orthorexia. We're heading to the point where we know so much that we've freaked ourselves out about eating things that are not perfect now. And now we eat very, very few things when really and realistically, a little canola oil is okay. It really is for most people.
For those who don't know, that means individuals extremely focused and obsessive over the quality and purity of their food. And just so you know, guys, that's okay.
I care very deeply about that. I'm someone
Yeah.
who thinks a lot about, and very mindful of what we eat, what my family eats,
Yep.
but also the same behavior that can be okay for one person is not okay for another person because of the mindset behind it. And that's where eating disorders really, I might do the exact same behavior as somebody with an eating disorder, but the mindset behind why I do it is entirely different. And that's kind of where the line tends to be. Is it taking over your life or are you in charge? Like there's a line there where it's not necessarily the choice not to eat that certain thing. It's what's going on in your brain around it.
And this is where, we were saying it's okay to be a little selfish and worry about your health, but that's also what we got to remember with the food. Okay, don't be selfish about the food. Yes, your body handled it just fine, for better or worse. The other person, if they're, wheezing or having to take some apple cider vinegar pills to deal with the heartburn, it's not agreeing with them. Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird. Because like you say, it's just like everyone wants to go in one camp and have that be the answer to everything. And it's like, just take note, guys.
It would be easier if that were the case. It's just not. In the end, we need to respect each other's knowledge of our own bodies.
Do you bring your math book to history class? No, because there's no need for it in that category. Do you bring your economics book to your social studies class? No. You don't need it for that. And I mean, it's kind of like when you were bringing up proteins, it's like there's all different sorts of proteins. We were even having this chat over what foods have better source of proteins, and it's like, okay, yeah, you'll find it in different kinds of meats, and then you got to pick out, grass-fed meat for better results. And it's like, yes, there's protein in cheese, but for the most part, it's mostly, it's dairy, it's milk.
I mean, eggs are a big one like that, right? I know we would all love for eggs to have more protein than they do. And unfortunately, they're just not that high in protein, which is frustrating because they're quick and easy and sometimes cheap depending on the year.
They are good for sleep, but yeah, I there would be days where I would have too many of them in a week. I'm like, I feel very ill. And I cook the egg.
I am in no means not saying don't eat eggs. I'm just saying the common misconception that they have so much more protein than they have.
It even goes back to even how we're cooking the food. If we've overcooked it, guess what? We're not going to get near as much benefits as we intended because we left it on the grill too long or overcooked.
I gotta say, I do think that about produce sometimes. When you get produce and you're like, if this has already been at the grocery store this amount of time, and then I keep it in my fridge for this amount of time, are all the vitamins and nutrients way lower than they should be? Yes. I think about that on a regular basis.
That's a good point too. It is like, it's probably too good to be true. Just the other day, so here's a life change that happened literally yesterday. I said, I'm not going to keep buying certain groceries at night. That used to be a thing, but I've been lately forgetting to bring them inside at the end of my work shift. I need to just make time on a different day. It's less inconvenient because it means more time and gas money, but go out and buy the food when I don't have too much going on. Because I keep coming home and I leave the food accidentally in the car all day. Yeah, I'm not going to take that risk.
The first step is self-awareness always. And we are so hard on ourselves because we think that everybody has that. But what I've realized is a lot of people don't get to that first step.
No.
Self-awareness is genuinely really difficult for a lot of people. So you recognize something, that's a big thing. And then you're doing something different. That's life.
Yep. I recommend any social psychological class. I mean, it even goes back to the first kind of reading the room. Like, if you're trying to talk to someone at a party, but they're walking in the opposite direction and putting two and two together, oh, they clearly don't want to talk to anyone right now. It's probably not even me. They're shy or whatever. And I get that it's hard to do it to ourselves too. Some of us are good at, I don't want to say pigeonholing, but pointing a finger or noting someone else's imperfections over our own. It doesn't even necessarily even have to be ego. It can be more just, I'm overprotective of myself, but I have less protection over other people because I see their flaws, And so, yeah, the more anyone can work on themselves and be like, I mean, I use a tally marker just for every lap I run because I know my brain is going to BS and say, oh, you ran 10. No, you didn't. You ran free, but you're that bored by it. You decided, yeah, 10 sounds good to me. No, you haven't. There's so many other indicators, it's like you haven't gone for your, haven't had to refill your water bottle. You aren't out of breath yet. Yeah, no, you have not run 10 laps.
Call that inspecting what you expect.
Yes.
So easy. The easiest person to lie to is you. We like
Yes.
so bad. So I also make myself mark on paper so many things like that. The miles I've walked, the customers that I've talked to, what I've done for the business, because you will tell yourself you are the hardest worker on the planet because it feels like you are. But when you look at it on paper,
I have it bad,
this
man.
match up with my goal? Is this the amount of activity I need for my goal? And it's horrifying how often the truth is no, it's not.
Yeah, man. You would think this would be amateur hour by now, but any bad habit can reemerge, and if you let it,
I mean,
take
this goes back
place.
to what we're talking about therapy.
Yes,
You have a hard time with self-awareness. If you feel like you are, we always say you're either blaming, justifying, or growing. So if you are built in a way where when things go wrong, you blame somebody, that's me. Or when things go wrong, you justify. So you make a lot of excuses about why it couldn't have happened. And you have every reason in the world why it's so much harder for you, blah, blah, blah. You can't be growing. First two go together, you will never be in growth unless you are getting rid of those. But that's what goes back to therapy. If you find that you can't pick that stuff out about yourself, you're not really sure what's up, therapists will help you with that. They'll listen to you and be like, here's the thing that I've noticed. That
here's
you
what I diagnosed.
Have you ever noticed that you do this? And maybe the answer is no.
Yep. Don't. And it's okay. We all have done it. We wouldn't
We're
be
all
human.
humans. I mean, I have a really hard time with that. So if you're out there listening and my hardest thing is admitting that I'm human, that I'm going to continue to mess up, make mistakes, do dumb stuff. Like a lot of my brain does not like that and wants to be very defensive about that. So if I just work hard enough, I can be perfect. That is something we are all going to have to move toward acceptance with. Harder for some of us.
Yeah, about that. And I get it. It's easy to just assume we got it all going on. Like one more thing and I'm done.
I wish.
Right. That's not how it works, guys. Sorry. And I don't know. Even if you don't like to be challenged, just go with the flow. Just have there be something that new that you learn instead of getting bored. That like if you haven't applied yourself and found out new things, then yeah, you're gonna continually find a lot of things mundane and pretty dull.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, just follow your curiosity. I'm fascinated by people who are bored. I don't remember being bored like ever. There's so many more things I want to learn about or I want to do, or I have more of a time issue than I have of a boredom issue. But surely like there are things you've got to be curious about and just start follow that rabbit trail somehow and see where you land.
Do you feel like it's a lot of, this is a common trait, but it's not for everybody, but have you ever met a lot of, I'm sure you have, but if there's any particular instance you've seen from someone who, once they got out of college, they did the whole, I got all the answers, I don't need to apply myself and learn anything new anymore?
Well, a little bit, but I think it's an unfair setup. So depending upon how old you are, you were told, do this. So work super hard to get super good grades and then make sure that you're in every club and the president of everything and lots of service hours and leadership so that you can get here, so you can get here, so you can get here. And then you get there and you find, I actually don't like this. So that was me in law school, right? Straight A's my whole life, president of everything. So I could go to a good college, so I could go to law school, and I did. And then you start working and you're like, oh, there is no there. I do not enjoy this. But when you've been put in a position where you've been told your whole life that this is what you need to do to achieve this goal, it's really hard to admit to yourself, I don't enjoy what this.
A lot of deep programming kind of.
Yes. And so it's not just they figured out all the answers after college. They think they know all the answers. You're too scared to make such a huge change, to burn down your whole life. It impacts everything. It's your ego. It's financial. It's you've been working so hard all of this time. There's so many aspects to it that I don't even necessarily think it is that we have all the answers. It's that we don't have the answer and we're too scared to say that.
So there's other stuff blocking us up mentally and emotionally.
That's what I see more often in the people that I know personally, is they might not enjoy a lot of things, but they will not make a change.
That's another thing I would see too. I had to unfriend so many people who they wanted to just come home, complain about how, oh, my life and job sucks. And we've unfortunately all experienced a bit of that, but it's just very more underwhelming if your friends who are inviting you over food and drinks are giving you all this advice and you're putting each of those down saying, I'm good, man, or nah, that sucks. I hate that idea. It's like, well, they're going to stop responding to you because you're giving them nothing in return and they legit care about your well-being.
There is nothing more frustrating to me than somebody who just wants to complain for years at a time, but then absolutely positively will not change anything. That makes me feel insane.
It's awful. I've worn all kinds of hats, and I've quit jobs over people in HR who downplay issues. I did plenty of entertainment-based gigs, and I would quit a film project if no one wanted to listen to any notes I was given. And I've even unfriended people who would blame everything on someone else. It's like, see, come on. You can't blame everything on how your dad raised you or how your mom scolded you. No, sir.
I mean, it's amazing what we can see in other people that we can't always see about ourselves. But I work with people like that sometimes too. And you can just see over the course of working them for years and years and years that it's a them problem. They are literally the source of their own unhappiness. That
they even are so full of it, they will just keep lying or downplaying it. It's like, okay, I'm seeing you lie in front of me. I don't want to label you a certain way because then you'll close up completely, but I'm seeing it unfold and it's not a pretty sight.
It's truly a thankless job to give feedback or advice to people who are in that mode.
Yeah, bless anyone, and kudos to all the people who do practice therapy. I know that's not an easy gig.
Yeah, amen.
So this has been a delightful hourly chat. It's you time now. So pat yourself on the back again for this roundtable. What else would you like to promote? I know you got a nutrition masterclass.
I do. I love that. Well, I would love to see you all in our community. You can follow me at Shannon Says So on Instagram. I don't use TikTok very often, here and there, Facebook, the whole 9 yards. I'm maxed out on friends on Facebook, but you're welcome to follow me. I love the community that we have. But yeah, one of the biggest things that I do is I offer a free nutrition masterclass. It's entirely self-paced. It's 5 modules about the 5 biggest things that make an impact to how you feel every day. So for example, that's your blood sugar, your hormones, your inflammation, things like that. And what are the simple, accessible things that you can do without paying anybody to impact those things? And that's what I love. That's what I really want people to get to a place where they feel empowered to make those shifts for their health. So they are just feeling so much better. And they wake up and they can't believe it. They're like, Shannon, I know that you said I would feel different, but I really feel so much different now that my gut is healthier. I really feel so much different. My pain symptoms are gone now that my inflammation is lower. All of those things. One of my big passions is blood sugar because I'm hypoglycemic, and I can feel in my own body when I do not treat my body right, how horrendous I feel, how I'm snappy with my kids. I hate everybody. I feel weak. I feel tired. And so that's one of my big passions, is because I think it makes such a huge difference on how people feel. And I truly believe that most people do not know how poorly they feel. They have just normalized it to have a migraine all of the time, to not sleep well, to be awake from 3 to 6 every single morning, right? To be bloated and pain every day. And I don't want you to live like that anymore. So it's entirely free. It's self-paced. All you got to do is stick in your email. It'll get sent directly to your email. You can take that whole thing. And I just love.
I'll be sure to link it.
who feel empowered, who just really then they're like, okay, I can do some of these things. And that's all I want for you is I don't want you to do extreme things. I don't want you
to try this.
Money. Yeah, just I can try this and I know what I need to do to make a difference in my health.
Instead of every other excuse in the book, I'm too fancy for this, or this is too much, even though I haven't tried it.
Like paying $500 a month for some bullshit program where you're going to eat 200 calories a day. And then of course it's over. And you're going to go back to doing exactly what you were doing before, and people get sucked into that stuff so often. And I would love to get you off that roller coaster.
Lovely. And I'll be sure to link it in the notes here, just as a courtesy. This was a delight, see.
I love talking to you too.
I felt like this was brain food, which is what I need.
It's always nice to talk to like-minded people who care about what you care about and who are curious, and I love that.
More or less, why expect any improvement if there's been zero attempts,
Well, you don't know what you don't know, and I hope because you're listening to this now you do know more stuff, right? And you're like, that set off an idea for me. I'm gonna look into that more.
Right. So check her out. Shannon Wenzel is on Instagram, guys. Please check out the link tree. Seriously, a sincerely just delightful time. And if anything, fitness opens up just kind of, your mind works better. You just want to actually try a few different things instead of just settle for less, or I'm good, this is all I need, If there's any other shortcut that makes life easier, take it,
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.